Hey there, future Mimi. And by future, I mean this is the Mimi from 2 months after the initial recording of this podcast. Just wanted to give you a fair warning that the audio in this podcast is going to be a bit off. The reason is because I had discovered how to actually use my microphone. I have a good microphone that I inherited from the times I used to do theater. And we had used a microphone to record our shows. In any case, I didn't set it up properly the first few times I was doing the podcast, and so I was having pretty inconsistent audio recordings. But now that I've set it up properly and it is capturing my voice, the audio towards the end of the podcast is going to sound much more clear, and I don't know how to fix the first part I was recording. I have also just lost the original recording itself. I think I edited it before I did like the actual editing the second time around, which was like 2 months later. So I think it's still listenable. I put some background music to, maybe distract some of the inconsistencies. I've done my best. Going forward, I think the audio will sound much clearer, and I'll do my best to study up a little bit more on making these podcasts more bearable, even if they're for funsies. I want to make sure, like, if you're putting in the background, it actually, is nice background noise. But with that, let's get right into today's podcast episode.
Hey there! You're listening to the BKDK podcast, hosted by Mimi the BKDK for the BKDKs, plus Ultra! Hello everyone, it's Mimi the BKDK once again. This is episode 3. It's been a really long time since I did one of these episodes. I think the last time I did it was in September probably. If I did it, I mean I recorded something. I actually wanted to record earlier last week. This is January 13th. It's midnight. Yeah, I wanted to record earlier this month, but funny story, I broke the cable that you need plugged into the mic in order for it to work. So I couldn't record that day. But I got a new cord, and happy to say it works. It looks way more flexible, so it does the job. And as usual, disclaimer, or I don't even remember if I put disclaimers in my previous episodes, but I am reading the raw manga. You can totally tell I grew up with fan subs and the like. But I mean, I'm reading the Japanese manga, so I don't own the English manga. I am a masochist and buy all of Horikoshi Sensei's manga in its original Japanese script. Because I technically can read Japanese. I took like 3 classes in college. Supposedly enough where I can get by in Japan. Like I could probably not like just survive. And I can carry a conversation with someone. Not, we can't really talk about politics or anything, but I can talk about opinions, and I can carry a conversation, a shallow one, more or less. But it's been a while. Yeah. And the other thing is, I don't think this is the case for all manga, but I think for shonen manga, they have what's called furigana. So there's hiragana next to all the kanji. So I rely on that heavily. That's how I'm able to read it. And how I'm doing is, as I read it, I hear the words, and I use a lot of context clues. And then also my handy dandy jisho.org dictionary. That's a free online Japanese dictionary. For any of those who happen to be listening to this weirdo analyzing BKDK and the shonen manga. Yeah, Jisho.org is a great free online dictionary. It's really comprehensive, even talks about inflections, it conjugates verbs for you. Check it out. And no, this is not sponsored by Jisho. I'm just rattling on. Anyway, I'm kind of doing something new this time. I'm kind of really going freeform. So in the previous recordings, which took like at least 2 tries each, I think 2 or 3 times actually. Yeah, no, 2 times. But I had read through the manga and I had watched the anime episodes, and I took notes. And then when I was recording, I was kind of flipping through the pages so I can quote whereas necessary. It was a lot of work. I mean, I didn't mind doing that, and this whole podcast is supposed to be a fun thing for me to do. But even then, it's like, yeah, it took a lot of time, which I don't have. I don't know if by the time I release these recordings, if this will be the case, but I am a very busy creative person. I like to write fan fiction a lot. Read my stuff on AO3. But also I am a comic artist, or trying to get back to speed on that. I am working on a project, or will be working on a project, depending on when this goes out, where it's a BKDK comic. It's a doujin, and it's an okwork seiyu, but basically it's a coming of age story where Kacchan realizes he is in love with Deku, and it's very funny, and well, at least I hope it'd be funny, but it's just him being a sore loser because somebody asks Deku out, and then he like has gay panic, and it's like, oh no. And I'll give more details in the future about this. But yeah, let's dive right into this. Where we left off was Deku Deku was approached by All Might after Kacchan left him, and All Might said, "You can be a hero." And for those who, have, obviously gone past this point, especially if you're, re-listening to a BKDK podcast, it's a really heart-wrenching moment where Deku clutches his heart and he cries because this is something he's wanted for so long, and society denied him of it. And this is a moment where also All Might, who was an obstacle to his dreams, is no longer an obstacle, and he becomes his first supporter. And then the second supporter is his mother. But of course, this is after, he trains his body, and All Might gives him a piece of his hair. So yeah, we're gonna skip that because there's no BKDK moments there. Quick summary, he's at the beach. He is pulling trash, getting swole. There is a BKDK moment. Okay, so after the page where All Might gives him a schedule of the regimen he wants him to do, it cuts back to a scene in their middle school just to accentuate how tired he is. So there's the panel on this is page 75. If you happen to have the Japanese manga, this is page 75. So the first panel is the Arudera middle school, and then there's the teacher, and he's talking about something not important. Deku's like, "Kitsui kore 10 getsu ka," which basically means, "Oh, this is tough." And I think he's saying 10 months. So for 10 months, it's just gonna be like this. Oh, he's gonna die. And then he starts mumbling up a storm because he's the prince of nonsense. And everybody's just like, "Oh, yo!" And then the teacher extends his arm and is like, "Midoriya, oi! Can you shut up? You're disrupting class with your mumbling." And Deku covers his face, and he's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. And then the last panel is a panel of Kacchan, who seems displeased. There's a girl in front, kind of framing his face. I'm not sure if she's the one saying anything, but there's a bubble that's saying "Noiroze." Actually, I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's insult. We're gonna skip that. But I just thought it's interesting how, we get a shot of Kacchan. He, again, actually this might be a contrast to how in the beginning, when they were talking about where are your career paths, and then the teacher's throwing the papers haha, lol, I know you all gonna be heroes, whatever, right? And then Kacchan's just Sensei, don't lump me in with the other kids. And then he jumps on his desk and he's like, I am the best, and blah blah blah. And then, he explodes his hands and he kind of threatens Deku. Not kind of, he threatens Deku in front of everyone. But here, even though Deku, made a fool of himself by talking, Kacchan has no reaction at all at this point. He's just he looks like he's deep in thought, or introspective, which is something you will see throughout Boku no Hero. Kacchan is, for what it's worth, he is not really a character that's just anger. When he settles down, he likes to contemplate. And I think this panel is what drives that, and I think that's these are the moments that kind of start painting a picture of he's not just this one-note character that hates Deku. Whatever happened, I mean, obviously he had a traumatic experience. He almost died to the sludge villain, but that affected him, and that's something that's weighing on his mind. Is so much that, he's not even having a reaction to something that he would have easily reacted to in the past. And after that, there are more training montage panels. Deku is trying really hard, to get swole. There's at one point where he's just on the floor and he's crying. And then he's just and then one day, Orumaito, goes to the beach and Deku's on top of a truck screaming because now he's swole, and then everything's great and he's eat my hair, quit, and Deku's huh? And then after that the chapter ends. We get I think this is the first character profile. Yes, this is the first. No, actually, he's the second character profile. Because the first character profile is Orumaito. This is the second character profile, which is our main character, Deku. And you guys can search this up on your own. I'm not going to really go into it. There's nothing here that's Deku relevant. Yeah, he's cute. Kawaii Deku. One thing I love about Horikoshi's drawings of Deku is just how he draws little squiggly line for his mouth. It's just so precious. And also, he is not plain. I don't know where. I guess. Well, actually, I do know. I think that the signifiers of plain, quote unquote, in Japanese manga maybe are the freckles. And the curls, something about that is plain. I don't know. I don't think it's plain because every single shonen character has spiky hair, and yeah, I think that makes Deku very unique. Anyway, so okay, now this is where we get another Bakudeku moment. So this is the page immediately after the character profile. Deku arrives at UA to take the entrance exam. And he's nervous and whatever. And then at the bottom of this first page, or second page actually, he's pulling up his backpack straps. Behind him is Kacchan. And he's like, Toke, Deku! Which is this, get out of the way, Deku. And then Deku's like, Kacchan! And then he's just like, Ore no mae ni tatsu na kurosu zo, which is, don't stand before me, I'll kill you. And then, we get the cheesy, this is Bakugo Katsuki, 15 years old. He's drawn in, not a pleasant way, but it's not necessarily, very intimating. It's just, I don't know. He's like, just get out of my way. But it's not as angry as he could have been. Like if Horikoshi really wanted to make it like this guy is bad news or whatever, he could have used like darker gradients. But it's just like a pretty light gradient shadow. Not light gradient, like light gray screen tone on his face. And what's interesting is then in the bottom panel, after like Deku is just like, oh, ohayo, gamba, baro, ne, otagai, which is like, oh, good morning. Let's good luck to the both of us. Kacchan just ignores him, just passes by him, and then there's a panel of like, Kacchan didn't do anything, and then we get the literal, I guess, older Deku narration where Deku's like, あの日以来、Kacchan は僕に何もしてこない。Which is how I would translate is, after that day, Kacchan didn't do anything to me. So I don't remember exactly how this is translated in the official manga. I don't even know if I've actually seen, not the official manga, the official English translation. I'm not even sure if I've seen the official English translation. I probably read fan subs. And I think I remember seeing how it was translated, like, oh, the fan subs, I think that were going around and being spread, they said something like, oh, he stopped tormenting me. But this is not what Deku says. It's implied that, Kacchan is not nice to Deku, probably wasn't being nice to him. But Deku doesn't use a word that, spoilers for the manga, like in chapter 270, 60, around that area, where Kacchan talks about, how he bullied Deku. The word he uses, ijiwaru? Hold up. Let me Google that. I cannot spread false information on this podcast. So that word is ijimeru. Yeah, ijimeru, which is like to pick on, tease. I don't know if there's a rougher word. The connotation I have of this word is like you pick on someone, not necessarily like bully. I feel like there's a much worse word you can use for bully. But I could be wrong. But ijimeru is the verb that Kacchan uses later on. This is in, chapter 260. It's in the range of 260. 285? 284? I don't remember, but in that range, basically in the war arc, where we get like a flashback of Kacchan helping out Deku with his training, and then All Might sits down and he's just like, oh, you are doing this to atone, right? And then Kacchan, summarizes the years of miscommunication they had to like, I couldn't face my weaknesses, so I ended up bullying him. And the vocabulary he uses there is ijimeru, that's the verb. And actually, there are some Twitter accounts that kind of talk about this and go into more depth. You should definitely check them out. One of them that I think you definitely should look at goes by the username of Red and Blonde. They're BKDK, but they do like translations of the original manga, just like I am. But they actually, I think, have more. They clearly have more context and understanding of Japanese, so definitely like look them up. They definitely did a thread on ijimeru. If I can, I'll try to link that whenever I get the Twitter account for this podcast set up. But yes, wrapping back here. This is where I think you can start to see also how Deku sees his relationship with Kacchan. And this is kind of tying back to what I said in episode 1 and 2. by all means, I guess, not I guess, but, for sure Kacchan was not necessarily a positive force in Deku's life. I still stand by that I don't think Kacchan went after him, but he definitely was complicit in, Deku's pain. Because, just imagine, like, people are making fun of you, and then, like, even if, and it's like, this kid, but then you don't say anything, that's just as bad as, if you went after someone. And, I'm not gonna go into, like, whether he went after him or not. That was in episode 2 and 1. And the conclusion I came to after a lot of talking was, I don't think he did. I think for him, he saw it as, like, self-defense or making sure that, like, he was reactionary. So he would only lift a finger if he felt like Deku was threatening him, or, actively getting in his way. In his frame of mind at that time, he wasn't attacking. He was, doing what was necessary. However, Deku, for him, Kacchan just is this weird kid that he's known all his life, that they don't really get along anymore. But, he's still someone he calls Kacchan. And he's still someone, he's definitely startled by him, and he's definitely not comfortable around him. But he's still able to be like, good morning, good luck to the both of us. Really awkward, like, I know we don't really talk, but hey, I wanna, I gotta say something, And then the whole fact that, older Deku narration is, he didn't do anything to me after that day. And by that day, it's the sludge villain day. Not even, he didn't go after me, or he didn't hurt me, or he didn't make fun of me. Like, he literally says, Kacchan wa boku ni nanimo shite konai. He didn't come, well, I guess that means he didn't come after me, but nanimo shite konai. Yeah, he just didn't do anything. So vague. Like, what? Kacchan pulled on your pigtails? That's all he did? Like, Deku doesn't really see Kacchan as this incredibly oppressive force in his life. He literally is just like, oh, Kacchan just stopped interacting with me, period. That's the, vibe that he gives off in this panel, or suggests. And we're gonna move on because we've been on this panel for way too long. Oh, actually, wait, sorry. I need to analyze the other panel. So in this panel, I already talked about how Deku said he's giving off the vibe of like, Kacchan isn't really anything in his reign. There's some other dialogue in here. So, so ahead of Kacchan, there are some randos, and they're saying, nah, あれ、国語じゃない？ヘドロンギの。Oh, 本物. So, those kids are basically saying, hey, isn't it that Bakugo guy, from the sludge villain time? And then people are like, oh yeah, it is really him. So, Kacchan, he's already kind of infamous. People see him as this victim of the sludge villain. And then the last bubble here is Deku's, and he's just thinking, ビビっちゃうのこれも癖だ. So he got scared out of habit, or Bibi. I think Bibi is scared or intimidated, nervous. He got startled. He got so bibiru. It's not a verb. In Japanese, you see this all over. So it's the sound effects. I don't have the exact word off the top of my mind, but it's bibiru. And yeah, that basically means like nervous, scared. But I think in this case, startled, I think I would go, that would be my attempt at translation. He basically is saying, I got startled out of habit. And after that, we go into, Deku trying to be like, oh, nope, I can't be a weenie, I gotta do this. And he's like, 以前とは違うんだ. I'm different from how I was before. 思い出せ、この10ヶ月間の Remember the 10 months of training you've had. 踏み出せ! And like full steam ahead. And then after that's when he trips. And then, that's where Uraraka-chan, the heroine of the story, supposedly, and love interest, at least that's what Horikoshi is not doing a good job at trying to make us believe. She comes, taps his shoulder, he's okay, doesn't trip. And then we're into the scene where President Mai is screaming, and he's gonna, start explaining how it works. And lo and behold, Bakugo-chan and Deku-chan are sitting next to each other. Deku is like being a nerd and like, oh my god, I listened to his radio, oh my god. And then all Kacchan says is "urise," which is a rude way of saying shut up. But he has his arms folded, and that's it. He doesn't really do anything. He's pretty reserved. And like, I wouldn't say the word mellow, but he's definitely a different beast from where he was, shown as in the beginning. Just seems like he's following stuff up and just kind of focused on a singular goal of probably like, I'm going to be a hero and show everyone off, and I'm going to ignore Deku. And then, President Mai is talking blah, 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 blah. And they're going to be split into different groups. And then this is where Kacchan's just like, I have to bend my manga to read this. 立ち同士で協力させねえでことか. So basically saying, okay, so they don't let people that you know work together. And then, okay, and the thing is, he's saying this, and he's literally looking at Deku when he's saying that, so he kind of like is making a comment. And then, this is again another moment, in my opinion, where it's like, these two have a relationship, but it's really awkward. So even though it's like he's talking, he's commenting, and it's like natural for Deku to respond, but it's like they haven't been on good terms for so long that it's like, what would he really say? And in this scenario, Deku says, 事件番号連番なのに会場違うね. Maybe they're saying like even though our exam numbers are the same, like maybe they're referring to their seating numbers, or I think he's looking at the cards because in the anime it's like, oh yeah, they're different. And then Kacchan's just like, Minna korosu zo, which is don't look, I'll kill you. Very characteristic of Kacchan to say. And then he's just like, Che, teme o tsubuse ne jane ka. So he's like, I can't crush you, because Kacchan doesn't really think of anything in this world except how to beat Deku, what to do with Deku, and everything. And then in this is an interesting bit. I never noticed this because this is actually this is my second time flipping through and looking at the panels. So I read through this a long time ago when I bought it. But there's actually a Mario reference in these panels. It might be a reference to a specific game, but there's clearly a Goomba and a Koopa. And then, those plant things. And then the second panel where it's just like, getting coins. It's Mario. There's the hat, and he's like jumping up. And then at the bottom, there's even, his Tanuki form. And after that, Ida comes up, and he's just like, saying things. And then he, points out at Deku, and Deku's like, what did I do? And Ida's just like, how dare you, make noise, and blah, blah, blah. And, Deku's just like embarrassed, and it's like, sumimasen, which is like, I'm sorry, people are laughing at him, the people in front of him are laughing at him, because they're meanies. And then after that, Deku's just like, it's okay, I'm excited, I can do this, and he's got a little squiddy line for his mouth. And then, actually, the exam begins, and then after that, it starts, everybody runs ahead of him, and he's just like, oh my god, he's like behind everyone, and then he's like, no, I gotta do this, and then like he goes in, and he's just like, oh my god, at like this giant robot that fell, and then like Aoyama is like using his laser beam, and everyone's doing great except him. He's like tearing up because he's just like lost, he's just a fish thrown in water. There's like one panel of Kacchan being explosive. He has his like hands in that his pose, and smoke is coming out. I think this is just a montage of images. And then after that, this huge robot comes. That's the 0.1. And then, Uraraka is trapped under. And then that's when he uses his one for all for the first time, breaks his arm. And then we get the third character profile in this manga, or in this volume. And I think this is actually interesting. I think the next one is going to be Uraraka, but the order of the character profiles are All Might, then it's Deku, then it's Kacchan. Kind of cementing the fact that Kacchan is kind of important. He says he's so important that he's literally right after Deku, like his profile. No, look at his ugly gremlin face and his sagging pants. Someone please tell this boy to wear his pants properly. Anyway, Deku kind of goes through. He's falling. Uraraka saves him by smacking his face. We get one panel of Kacchan looking bloodthirsty as President Might, announces it's all over, and the nurse, comes by, and after that we get to Deku staring at the fish that his mom made, and he's just sad because he's just I messed up at the entrance exam. And then he's nervous. He's strengthening his hand grip, and then he's trying to lift the weights. It's just anxiety. You've been in that moment before where maybe you're waiting for test results, or just mail acceptance letter, to a college or whatever. This is that anxiety moment. But of course, as you know, he gets through, and then there's a shot of Uraraka trying to be oh, I wanted to, give some of my points, and Deku's really touched. He specifically calls her that nice person because in Japanese, you don't really refer to people as oh, that girl, unless you're trying to be rude, and Deku is nice, so he's a polite boy, so he's just in the beginning, she was always that nice person. Oh, it's that nice person. And I guess that's kind of sad. The first nice person he meets, he's just so touched by that. How many nice people has he met, in his life until now? We don't know, but probably very little. I mean, where's his dad? And anyway, we all know this. He gets in because actually the robot was worth a lot of rescue points. And then the chapter ends, and it's Uraraka's character profile. And yeah, because she's supposedly the other most important character, except we haven't seen much of her in the manga lately. But yeah, and then after that, Deku meets with Orumaito, and they talk, and they run on the beach, and then it's the first day of UA, and Inko is starting to be the second supporter of his dreams. So remember how I said there were 3 people who were standing in his way of becoming a hero. One was All Might. And as you know, All Might is no longer an obstacle. He is now a supporter because he gave him one for all, and he's training him. Now it's his mom's turn. His mom, sees that he got into hero school. Despite all odds, he has a quirk, and he went to hero school. And now he's going to that hero school, specifically the best hero school in Japan. So, there's a panel. There are panels of, Inko just being Izuku. And then Deku's just Nani? God damn it, Mom! I gotta go, I'm gonna be late. And Inko just looks down, then looks back up, and then says, 超かっこいいよ, which is saying, you look so cool. And Deku's just 行ってきます. Oh, the precious boy. Oh, he's come so far. But yeah, because, I think Inko feels really guilty for what she said when he was a little baby kid. Just can't be a hero. I'm so sorry, crying to his face. Nope, you have a little quirk. Nope, you can't make it into society. But now she's resolving to make amends for that. That's why she's saying, you look cool. Like, you can do it now. That's the kind of vibes she wants to be giving. And yeah, the next page is, Deku running to classroom, and he's thinking about, the scary people, and the first people that come to mind is actually Ida, who's drawn sort of like a delinquent. Like, there's just this shadow cast over his eyes, and his, he's making like a face with his teeth. And then Kacchan, who has scary, I'm not even shark teeth, he just has pointy teeth, and yeah, he just looks like a demon. And specifically, Deku says, 怖い人たち、クラス違うとありがた。I missed the context. Yeah, the previous panel, he's saying like, 受験者数から選ばれた人たち. He's thinking about like who are the chosen people. He's like, oh, the scary people. 怖い人たち. He's like hoping they're not in the class. And then, of course, he opens the door, and it's like the first people, that he thought of when he thought scary are there. And he literally says, stop! Tsutoppu. Actually, it's a pun. Because two is tsu, and then tsutoppu is also tsu. So he's referring to like, crap, it's those two people. But also, stop. What are you pushing in your puns? But yeah. This is my favorite panel, or this is one of my favorite interactions. But Ida is here lecturing Kacchan about, putting his foot on the desk. There's, Kaminari looking at him. Mineta's in the back. Ida's just like, oh my god, like, our upperclassmen, took care of these desks. This is rude if you do that. And Kacchan's just like, actually, let me see if I can try to read. I'm gonna try to do a Ida and a Kacchan impression. So Ida's like, 机に足をかけるな. So don't put your feet on the desk. ゆえの先輩方や机の詮索者方にもう仕訳ないと思わないか? So he's just like, Yue's senpai, upperclassman, entrusted these desks to us. Don't you think it's rude? And then Kacchan's just like, 思わねえよてめえどこ中だよ早くが. So he's like, yeah, I don't think it's disrespectful, and he basically insults him. He's just like, you basically come from a whatever, lowly middle school. And of course Ida-kun's just like, what? 俺は私立総明中学出身Ida Tenya da. He's like, I am, Ida Tenya, and I came from Some Private Youth Academy. And Kacchan's just like, Some kuso elite じゃねえか? So it's like, oh, you're a stupid elite. ぶっ殺しがありそうだな. And he's just like, I'm gonna beat you up. Well, not gonna beat you up, but he's just like, you're, from elite, aren't you? And he's just like, oh, he's gonna crush you. And then Ida's just like, oh, 君ひどいな。本当ヒーローに志望か? He's like, are you really trying to be a hero? You're so awful. And then, Deku's just, he's peeking from the entrance, and then Ida just approaches him, and then he's just like, actually, you saw something that I couldn't see, and blah, 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 blah. And Deku's just like, this is awkward. And then we get a panel of Kacchan being constipated, and he's just like, Deku. But he's not actually ready to, explore anything. He's just kind of like, Deku passed? Deku is here. Sus. That kind of expression. And after that, Uraraka comes in, and Deku is just like, I'm blushing because a girl is talking to me, and I'm very awkward around them. Oh my god. And then Kacchan, this is where we get some Kacchan flashbacks. Kacchan angst. Kacchan is just like, flashback. うちの中学から有英進学者が2人も出るとは. So this is actually the voice of one of their teachers saying like, wow, our middle school having 2 kids go to UA? And then he's just like, 特に緑谷は奇跡ちゃうの奇跡だな. He's like, it's a miracle of miracles for you, Midoriya, because, he was quirkless. Who thought he would get in? And after that, the panel of Kacchan being very rough with Deku. I guess they're behind the school, and he basically like shoves him against the wall, and he's just like, "Donna kitane te tsukaya ebe ga karunda? Donna." I think he's trying to say like, "I told you not to apply." But he also says Kacchan's words are hard. Donna. Oh, he's like asking, "Donna kitane te? What dirty-handed tricks did you use to, get in?" Tsukaya. Okay, yeah. Donna kitane te tsukaya? What kind of dirty-handed tactics did you use? Teme ga ukarunda. You, a quirkless person, used to get in. And he's like, adds that for emphasis. And Deku's just like, And then Kacchan continues, 史上初唯一のゆ進学者。俺の将来設計が早速スタボロだよ. Which is saying like, I was supposed to be the first and only one to go to UA, and you ruined all that. Hoka ke tsutaro ka. He's like, I told you to go to a different school. But then Deku, again, people are all like, oh my god, Deku's just a little weenie, little victim, and blah, 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 blah. Well, this Deku, granted, he has one for all, so he has, a quirk. He's more equal to Kacchan than he's been. He grabs Kacchan's arm, and he's just like, Ite morattanda. And he's saying, like, somebody told me this. Kimi wa hero ni nareru te. Someone said that I could be a hero. Kacchan, kachitotta datte. Takara, boku ikunda. And he's like, Kacchan, I want to take victory. That's why I'm going. And after that, we go back to present time, where Kacchan is just being like, glaring. Hongo nanka shiagatte. Ura ga aru hazu da. He's just thinking like, there has to be a trick. Yeah, he's like at that day, he's like, he even dare resist me. But you know what's funny? I'm not sure if this is intentional, or it could just be like, we only needed a flashback enough to see that Deku, said no to Kacchan being a meanie for like the second time. Because the first time was when he's just like, oh yeah, I'm still gonna go to UA, even when everyone's laughing at him. And this will be the second time when he's just like, nope, I'm going to UA, you can't stop me. They don't show what happens afterwards. Kacchan didn't beat him up, none of that. But anyway, this is all ended because Aizawa is here now, and he's like, oh, you want to make friends? Oh no, yeah, you guys no. You can go elsewhere for that. And we're gonna stop here.
So this is Mimi the BKDK 2 months after I recorded what you just heard. The reason for being is I needed to take some time off from continuing these podcasts. I remember after I finished recording, I was really displeased with what I said. Not that I can remember what I was said. I think I probably recorded it like in the midnight. In the morning, early morning, and my brain wasn't functioning. I'm actually not really functioning right now either. I went to sleep at 6 a.m. Yeah, anyway, my bad sleeping choices aside, I did want to end this on a better note, aside from just lie. And I am going to say first a summary of what I think was the point I was trying to get across. That I think I did get across, and then two, something that I think I want to try to do for the next episode. It feels strange because I didn't want to do this in the first place, but I've been listening to a lot of people kind of talk for very long periods of time about things they're passionate about or their own experiences, and I realized, you know what, podcasts are okay being long. Like, people listen to them not because they're actually listening to them, but I think because they're multitasking and they want something in the background. And if my voice somehow isn't grating to you, if my horrible Nihongo isn't making you want to rip your ears out, but can actually serve as a good background noise, it also happens to be about your favorite ship, hey, I will do it. And I want this to be fun. So let's get right to it. So first, the summary. I think what I was trying to say here was, one, this Deku here is a Deku that you will want to revisit and contrast with, let's say, the Deku from chapter 306. And for those who have read 306 will know what I mean about contrast. To describe it in the most least spoiler way, this Deku here is very naive, very simple-minded, but he sort of needs that in order to go to places, in order to beat out all the people, the naysayers who don't believe in you. You need to have a very clear goal, very focused goal. Maybe clear isn't the right word because I want to be a hero isn't very clear, but it's very simple. It's something you can say to yourself a lot. It's a mantra. It's sort of like, for those who write their own stories, you might have heard from other people who have been published, or just maybe just other people who also write stories. But one thing about stories and characters, the ones that stay with people are the ones where people can remember very clear character motivations. So, not to rag on Bleach, because I am someone who owns, right now, let's see, 12 volumes of Bleach. I grew up on Bleach. Bleach was my lifeblood. However, I feel like Bleach compared to manga like One Piece and Naruto, you know, the big three, even other manga like, what's the popular one right now? Jujutsu Kaisen is super popular right now. The difference between Bleach and the other anime is that Ichigo, the main character of Bleach, he doesn't have a very clear motivation outside of, I want to save my friends, right? And I want to save my friends only comes about if there's a villain threatening his friends, if there's a villain kidnapping his friends. Whereas One Piece, Naruto, all their main characters have a very simple goal. I want to be a pirate. I want to be the Hokage. I want to be a sorcerer and make and help people. I don't know. It's a motivation that is very internal. It comes from the MC, main characters, internalness. And even if there's no villain or external force that's driving a motivation out, it's okay. The main character can supply that himself. And Deku right now, as our underdog, he needs one. He needs a very simple one, something that will keep him motivated and going through even when nothing is happening. And I would argue that a very simple motivation is very easy, or much easier to hold on to very tightly amidst a bunch of naysayers, right? A bunch of people can say, you know, well, you shouldn't be a hero because you're a quirkless and you're blah 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 and blah 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 blah. And Deku could easily just be like, well, you know, according to the statistics, you know, maybe quirks people can also do this and do that. They can do that. Deku maybe has done that, you know, we just didn't see this in the manga. But why waste your time arguing with people who don't believe in you instead of just repeating this one idea in your head and kind of just going for it? Now, I'm not saying, you know, this is something you should do in real life. Like, okay. It's not, this isn't really necessarily a lesson, I guess I want to say, but maybe an observation. For example, I'm an artist. I obviously I'm trying to be a more, I guess, full-time artist, but with the pandemic and other factors that I have to account for, this is not possible. But I think I wouldn't have gotten to this point where I've put in time and I've actually made headway, whatever that means for me, in my art career, because when I was young, I started out with a very simple ideal. I want to be an artist. I was very much like a shonen protagonist. I want to be an artist. I want to publish a book. It's a very simple goal. It doesn't accommodate for all the complications of, what goes into publishing a book, what goes into being an artist. You can easily Google yourself all the videos on how actually difficult it is to be any sort of creative. Oftentimes, creative people aren't just creating things, they're actually busy marketing themselves or networking. Oh, I hate that word. Just anything but creating. That's the reality of an artiste. And that's sort of the case for Deku. It's so easy to just watch the TV, watch a hero passing by and stopping a villain, and getting caught up in the glamour, getting caught up in how beautiful and cool and amazing these heroes are saving people. But there's so much that goes into being a hero. And Horikoshi, if you read his manga, he goes into this. And one of the earliest arcs is the Stain arc. And then, we'll have villains like Gentile, or even Shigaraki. His ideals are very specific. The villains start getting complexity. This is all because this very simple motivation, which was necessary for Deku to want to, be a hero, to actually be a hero, to get past all the naysayers. But it's like also at some point you need to shed that simple worldview if you want to stay. Anyway, I think this period of, time that the manga covered and that I talked about, try to analyze in my podcast, this is what this really was. Just a depiction of Deku trying to be a hero, but in a very naive sense. And it's heartbreaking to see him break his bones again, because this is my second time reading the raw manga, and probably the second or third time in general. Oh, actually, no, fourth time. This would be in general like the fourth time, kind of seeing him break his bones, just hurting himself for this dream. And that is a point in his character development that allows him to be something different later on. It's not just like, I'm still gonna be a hero and all I care about is saving people. No. Because he starts out so simple, later on he starts getting more complicated. And I think readers can probably start seeing points of contention with his character. Not such that you hate him, but more that these points of contention are there to make his character more deep, and, in my opinion, makes him even more likable. You want to root for him, but you're also scared and worried for him. I have read many shonen manga, watched many shonen anime, and Deku, I think, is one of the few, if not, he might be the second protagonist that I've ever, fell in love with pretty quickly. Like, I actually genuinely like Deku as a protagonist. He's relatable, but I also sincerely am worried for him. I know he's a fictional character, but I write so many fan fictions and write so many. I'm doing a podcast on him and his, childhood friends relationship, but that's only because I feel like Horikoshi has made him feel very grounded. He's fictional and he's dramatized, but I feel like if he was a real person, he would be someone I would want to befriend and I would want to talk to, and I definitely would be concerned for. That's amazing. And again, just to wrap up on this point on Deku, because we're gonna get to Kacchan. It's great that this, this time that I covered in the manga in this podcast. It's great that they've established, Horikoshi has established Deku as, I guess your standard shonen protagonist, but with the underdog flavor, because, later on, he can start to, I guess, tease out those flavors of humanity in him, and it's going to be great. Now, as you know, this is a BakuDeku podcast, so I gotta talk about Kacchan. And now that I have finished listening to this podcast episode that I recorded 2 months ago, and I can see with a bit more impartiality that it's not so bad, and I had some good points. I think the good points that I came across were, well, one, Kacchan here, well, like Deku, has a very, well, actually no. Deku has a bit more nuanced worldview than Kacchan to begin with, because he was born quirkless, so he was already acquainted with inequality in the society. But, both still have a pretty naive view of the world. Kacchan has a way more naive view, though. He has a very black and white worldview, in fact. His worldview is, I'm strong, because growing up, I saw that this hero I really admire, All Might, is strong, and that's what I want to be like. And that is the only thing that matters. This strength, this combat strength, this ability to win battles against villains. Now, in these panels that I analyzed in this episode, I think I was able to demonstrate how after the sludge incident, he's already begun reflecting on this conflict he's probably had or was aware of since childhood because of Deku's assistance. This conflict between his worldview and what's actually reality. So, reality is, for some reason that he doesn't know, Deku is hero-like. Deku is capable of being a hero. Probably a better hero than him. We know this because this is not a flashback that hasn't happened yet as a recording, but for those who, are listening to my podcast and, are caught up with the manga and stuff, there's the infamous flashbacks of, Kacchan and Deku. They're with their other childhood friends. They're walking across a log, and then Kacchan slips, falls into a river, and his useless friends are like, "Get back up here!" But Deku's the only one who doesn't even think about, oh, well, Kacchan's fine. He's a boy that's strong. He's totally fine. Yeah, he should just get up here. No, he's just like, oh no, Kacchan fell. I need to go at least see if he's okay. So he runs down and he's like, are you okay? Daijoubu? And he extends out his hand, and this is something that Horikoshi, bless his pen, he touches upon in a later volume cover. I'm not gonna say which one, but that was a moment, at least, that shows how Kacchan already knew then that something was up between what the adults in his life were telling him and what he was kind of trying to come to conclusions himself, from watching All Might. Again, the messages were, you're so cool, you have an amazing quirk. That quirk is all you need to become a hero, a really strong hero. You're already very hero-like because you're really strong. However, in that instance, he realized that Deku was hero-like, even though he had no quirk. Like, okay, the message is receiving that if you have a quirk, and it's an amazing quirk, you're gonna be an amazing hero. Well, Deku has no quirk. But then why does he feel in that instance that Deku was capable in some way? And then, fast forward to now, Deku's gotten to UA, the same school where they can learn heroics. Are you able to kind of see the train of thought I'm having? I feel like Kacchan begins to change now, because, well, one, he's a smart character. He's not a dum-dum where he's just like, oh no, this guy defied me and I'm angry because I'm right and everyone's wrong. I mean, to some extent, yes, that is the character he is. You know, he is immature. But in the panels I covered, Horikoshi draws him with this reflective, I guess, quality to him. And if he was truly just a bully that was really dumb, he would just react. But in all the panels I covered, aside from the one where, you know, the panels where he shoved Deku against the wall and was like, how dare you? But when he's actually interact with Deku afterwards, like, you know, when they first meet each other again, on their way to the entrance exam, and then when they're sitting together, he doesn't react to Deku. He's very focused. It's like he's right now thinking, and he's probably trying to maintain his ego, his worldview, because that's what's gotten him so far in life. So he needs to maintain this worldview because, one, it's worked so far. Two, you can't just drop a dogma for another dogma and continue living. You need some kind of purpose in order to keep, you know, going about your life. So Kacchan's not going to give up his ego immediately or anything, you know, not that he should. But you know what I'm trying to say is, at this point, I think he really knows there's something that he needs to address, and that something is related to Deku. Deku is a manifestation or representation of reality that doesn't quite meet with his worldview. And until he can kind of understand that, he's going to be quote-unquote weak. And I'm not just saying this because I'm reading too much into it. I mean, yes, I am. But one, because this is something that I've observed in my 5 years in this ship hell. But two, because I'm actively thinking about what Kacchan says himself about, you know, the time he was in middle school. I think I bring it up in this episode where he says, you know, back then I couldn't accept my weakness, so I bullied Deku. So I think in the 9 months before they take the entrance exam and then afterwards, Kacchan has already begun to realize that, well, one, Deku isn't really the problem here. The problem here is I cannot accept Deku. I don't understand Deku. All my life I've been told I'm very strong and that I have a quirk, and that quirk is powerful, and that quirk is what will allow me to be a powerful hero. Yet there is someone who has physically been by my side all my life who has gotten to UA. I don't know how, but he's gotten to UA and he looks like he's going to excel. What does that mean? Does that mean, you know, what am I? I have a quirk, but what if I don't have a quirk? You know, I'm not saying he has these specific thoughts, but he probably has doubts about his worldview. And that is what makes this ship great. And that is why I'm doing a podcast on them. There's this complexity to their relationship. It's not just, you defied me, I hate your guts, I'm gonna beat you up because you're my rival. It's, we used to have a history together. No, not we used to. We have a history together. We used to get along. However, the way society has brought us both up has made us very different, in such that I'm meant for a great destiny, you're not. But when you defy that, what does that mean about me? It makes me feel like I'm nothing. It's like someone tells you you're great because you have a foundation made of gold, and that people who don't have gold, you know, they can't become anything. But then you know someone that you grew up with, they have no gold and they make something great. Doesn't it make you feel like you've been lied to? Doesn't it make you feel like, something's up here, and it's a very uncomfortable feeling, but it's one that I think Kacchan is really great at kind of like figuring out for himself. It's a very painful process, and I'll get into it in the next episodes. In conjunction with Deku's character development, Kacchan gets character development. And yeah, well, with that, I will see you in the next episode, and I hopefully will be more coherent. I'm recording this without the book in front of me, so I'm just winging off my memory of what I just listened to in order to edit it. But with that, yes, I will leave you and see you in the next episode. Stay safe.